Fine, no.
Okay. Welcome back to the From the Fabricator podcast. My name is Max Perlstein, and thank you so much for joining me once again this month. Thrilled to have you here. We've got a great podcast. In my opinion, 3 tremendous guests. Before we get to it, this month's edition of the From the Fabricator podcast is brought to you by myglassclass.com. It is the ultimate destination for glass and glazier training. Check it out at myglassclass.com. More than 100 courses overall, more than 60 of those in Spanish for those that may have that as a preferred language. It is on-demand training, 24/7, the best of the best, built by the National Glass Association. And so this training is legit. Check it out today. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to get with me, and I will help you through that. But it is good stuff, myglassclass.com. Before we get to the interviews, this month coming up in July, Glass Conference Tacoma. Registration is still open. This is going to be an amazing conference. Coverage on bird friendly, which is a huge and important coverage on school safety, huge and important. All the technical chops that you need and want to have for your survival will be there, and then some great tours. Going to TGP, I've been there. Great place, great people. Going to see the Space Needle in Seattle. That's something memorable. So check that out at the NGA at glass.org. Look at the events, look for Glass Conference Tacoma, and sign up today. All right, on the podcast, we've got Sophia Panova, an architect out of Massachusetts. Fantastic talent and on a rocket ship for what she's doing with her firm. Also have Bill Wilson of Specified Systems, and have Mark Rabinowitz from Paul Rabinowitz Glass outside of Philadelphia. Really interesting comments from all. And we started off with Sophia, and I'll see you on the other side. Okay. Kicking things off this month, I've got a real live architect. I'm really excited. This is somebody that I have followed on LinkedIn, a huge fan of. I'm bringing in Sophia Panova. She's the principal of So-ZHA. You can find her firm online at www.so-zha.com. Really talented. If you've seen her stuff on LinkedIn when she reviews certain things, it's fantastic. I just can't wait to dig into things with Sophia and chop it up. So Sophia, thank you so much for doing the podcast.
Thanks so much for having me. It's really exciting. I love podcasts. I was on one recently, and I said I love to talk. So anytime somebody invites me to talk, I'll do it.
Fantastic. And it's funny because I watched that podcast and you were great. And I do like when you talk. Like, one of the things I saw on LinkedIn was you were in a different city and you walked and talked through different buildings. And I think that's really cool. And I'm sure we'll cover that. But let's start with you. Talk about, I'd love to know about your past, where you were born, where you grew up, went to school, and how did you get into architecture and become an architect?
Yeah, I was born in Kazakhstan, so former Soviet Union, and I was born the year that it kind of collapsed.
Okay.
So that wasn't fun for anybody. And my parents, the only 2 places that they could really go to after that was either Australia or Canada, and they didn't really know where they were on the map. Like in the Soviet Union, you couldn't leave the country. It was a big country, but you could never leave. So for them, international was a big thing. And so they applied to Canada. It took us 3 years to get our documentation, but we moved there, and I grew up there up until I was, I don't know, at this point, I can't remember, 21, 22. Okay. And then I came here for school. But Canada was a great place to grow up. I was 8 when I moved there. And now I got into the GSD, which was like my dream school. Okay. And that's how I came over to America. But architecture in and of itself, I've always been interested in it ever since my mom was kind of going through the list of things I could be when I grew up.
Okay, I like it.
And she just kind of said architect, and I was like, what is that? And it sounded really interesting, and I always liked math and art and those 2 things combined, and I just thought it was really cool to build buildings. I don't know, and nice. I got really excited about it. I was like, I think this is what I want to do.
I like it. What part of Canada were you in? Where did you guys move to? Toronto. Okay, great. And so here you've become an architect and you're doing things, and you started your own firm. So So-ZHA is you and your firm. I believe you're a good handful of months in. What led you to kind of start your own firm? What was the impetus for you to say, hey, I'm going to bet on myself?
Yeah, I think I always wanted to own my own firm, just because I always wanted to I don't know, have that control and
Mhm.
have that kind of freedom. But in terms of timing, I think it really worked out in the sense that I had a child. Our son is 19 months old, and I
Great.
stayed home with him for 12 months, which was lucky because, not everybody gets to do that. And about 12, 14 months in, he started daycare. And I just realized that like going back to work would be tough, especially in
Yep.
architecture, because a 9 to 5 is great, but it's unlikely.
True.
And there's so much flexibility that you need with a child, and usually one of the two parents, right, is the primary. And in this case, I'm the primary. My husband doesn't work super close, and he has his own startup. So we have to figure out sort of the family side of things,
Yeah.
right? How are we going to manage this? His parents are in Texas, mine are in Toronto. They don't come as often, so we don't have necessarily that family support.
Sure.
So we had to kind of figure it out. And then I was thinking to myself, that's probably early. I don't have that much experience. I just got licensed, what do I know? But I realize now, like 5 or 6 months in, that it wouldn't have made a difference had I stayed or worked somewhere for another 15 years. This is a totally different ballgame.
Yes.
It's an entirely different animal. And I'm happy
Good.
that I decided to go off as early as I did in
That's
my mind.
awesome. That's awesome, and obviously, even a bigger risk. I mean, we've all taken different sort of risks. I did a few years back when I did this, and but it's
Yep.
interesting that not only did you take a risk with a new baby, but also a husband that is in a startup too. So yeah, you definitely walking a little bit of the tightrope. That's
Oh yeah.
I like it. I like it. You're
Living on
confident.
the edge.
You're confident. So how is it going? How's the firm going? What's the focus of So-ZHA, and how's it all going?
Yeah, no, good question. It's a lot. I kind of just I'm sort of like going at all in all directions at full speed, honestly. And
Yes.
I have everything from, small work on the side, like additions, fit outs, renovations, and then I just did a warehouse fit out for a client who is now hiring me to do a renovation of an existing restaurant they bought into a grocery store. So some commercial work.
Nice.
And I'm also contracting for a couple of their other architects who also graduated from the GSD. They happen to know each other, and they both have independent offices, very different work. And it's useful to me because first I get to see how they run their businesses and how they think through things. I
Right?
get to collaborate, which is really important because when you're on your own and you're in a silo, it could get very isolating very quickly,
Yes.
especially when you're working from your bedroom like
Yes.
me.
Yes.
So, full disclosure, in case anybody is out there thinking I'm in my office, not yet. Will be. We'll get there.
Yep.
But so those are helpful because they can be projects that I haven't worked on before, and I can work with somebody who has experience and understands how to do it. And then I can use that collaboration as experience on my website, whatever it is, and I can talk about those projects and also help them,
Yeah.
and they're kind of also in the stage where they're rethinking their business and they need like a thought partner or something, somebody who's also in the same space. What are we doing marketing wise? What are we doing
Sure.
branding wise? How are we approaching this? How are we approaching that? Where are the holes? And so there's these kind of interesting conversations that we have through all of it that are valuable and important. And then, I have potential international collaborations going on totally out of left field. I started talking to somebody on LinkedIn, and LinkedIn is like my home
Oh yeah. You're
now.
you're you're good.
Totally
You're
my
good
home.
on there. Yeah.
Thank you. And he's in well, he's kind of all over the place, but really he's Egyptian and he works in Kuwait, and we're talking about doing potential some kind of international work and collaborating that way. So I'm actually going to Dubai
Nice.
to
Okay.
meet him
Yeah.
in July, and seeing where that goes. And I figured, it's a risk, but I'll take my husband along. And
Yeah.
worst case scenario, it's just a good vacation.
Well, and speaking of the architecture you'll see over there is worth the trip, and
Yeah.
and it's funny you talk about LinkedIn, and that was one of the things. You are a pro at LinkedIn. You're fantastic at it, and it was I believe it was Austin, maybe you did a walking tour, and you were
Yes.
pointing out things that you liked and you didn't like, and And I think that that catches, you know, it's funny. You didn't talk down to people. You were just giving your thoughts and your insights were fantastic. And I
Thank
think
you.
that connects. I really do.
Yeah, no, that's really nice. Thank you, because I've been learning a lot about LinkedIn. You may be familiar with Steve Flanagan, who's like
Hmm.
the big guy on LinkedIn. He's the one who got me in. He sat me down for 2 hours in his office and like ran through my profile and told me everything I needed to do. And I was like, if somebody's willing to sit down with me, somebody of this caliber, and tell me what to do about LinkedIn, I'm gonna go do it.
Sure.
Like, and that changed my life because I've gained clients, I've gained friends, I've gained relationships. One of the people that I met through LinkedIn visited me in Boston recently. His name is Vishal, and we talk every day. Like we're buddies now.
Yeah.
A lot of my mentors came from there. So it's a really great place
Hmm.
to interact with people. And I realized that like one thing that I wish I could have done more earlier was more of this networking, because it's important, you know, to kind of talk about your work and talk about what your passions are. People just interact with you for that
Yeah.
reason. And then the other side of it, you know, people approach me and they say, hey, can you review my portfolio? Can you review my resume? And I'm always happy to do it. And, you know, anybody who's asking for work or connections, I always try to help. So I think it's an important community aspect too.
It really is, and it's a very positive community.
It
Unlike
is.
other social areas, you know, you very rarely see somebody trying to dunk on somebody or be mean. You know, the comments are usually exceedingly positive and upbeat, and yeah, I'm a huge fan of it. I live
Yeah.
on there as well. I don't think I bring the content that you bring and other people bring, but I really enjoy following and I learn a ton, and I think that's the
Yeah.
biggest takeaway for me.
Yeah, I learn a lot too, and I definitely gain a lot of people are like supporting me and saying like, hey, you can do it, encouraging me. There's business owners out there reaching out, being like, I know where you're at, I can help you. Let me know if you need resources. And I'm like, oh my goodness, like this is unbelievable, you know, and it definitely makes you feel a lot more optimistic and positive
Yep.
when you're sort of on your own trying to figure things out, making decisions every day you've never made before. You end up kind of having more support, you know, moral, you know, educational, whatever it is,
Yep.
people are there, and it's awesome.
It is. It's very cool. It's very cool, and I love the excitement that you have surrounding So-ZHA and how that's working. And so, this is good stuff. I'm with Sophia Panova. She's the principal at So-ZHA. You can check out her website at www.so-zha.com. And you know, I got more serious questions coming, but I always like to break it up with a fun one. And especially given your past, I'm really curious on the answer on this one. Absolute favorite food slash restaurant. What is the must go to for Sophia and her food options?
Oh my, this is like a hard question because my tastes are like as wildly variable as my moods. So
Okay.
it really depends. And I don't have any restrictions. So I'm kind of like, you know, as bright as the day can get, anything from like Mediterranean to Mexican food, seafood, French, you know,
Yeah.
whatever. And but you know, I can't go a day without like fresh fruit and vegetables
Nice.
and
Okay.
that kind of resets me. And it's a little bit of a boring answer, I know, but maybe scallops. Maybe I'll
Okay.
go with scallops. If scallops are on the menu,
Yep.
I'm going to order the scallops. You know, you can probably reliably find me ordering them anywhere. And of course, like I have an enormous sweet tooth. So anything along that side of things, Russians have really good cakes and really good ice cream. There's a Russian grocery store here in Boston that I go to, and I exclusively always have to buy like the cakes and the ice creams from there. But if you're interested in some interesting food,
Tell me.
there's an Ethiopian restaurant in Boston called Blue Nile. It's really good too.
Okay. So I don't think I've ever had Ethiopian. So if I ever make it to Boston, you and I can do that, and you can take me
Let's
there,
do
and
it.
I can plan on
Save
that. So okay,
the date.
consider it done. I like it. I like the answer too. I like the fact that you're wide open. I didn't, you know, I was trying to think ahead of time of your background. You know, if you were going to be kind of hardcore from your past, or you were wide open. So it's interesting. You are wide open. I like it. I like it.
I am. Toronto is like a super diverse place, and it's
Yes.
like every location has incredibly authentic food. So I do miss that a lot because you can go and like get Korean like
Yep.
really authentic Korean and really authentic Chinese and whatever. So and then you can go and get like the new agey mix up stuff. So
Yeah, I go to Toronto quite often. I'm only 3.5 hours from there, and the melting pot. Toronto is an ultimate melting pot.
oh
It,
yeah,
it really truly, when you go there, you see everything and you see everyone, and it really is a neat community all the way around. So I'm a big
it
fan.
is.
Yeah, big
Yeah,
fan.
it is. It's
Makes
expensive, but it is.
it, it is. It is, especially with all those condos downtown, on top of each other. Yeah, it's a tough place. All right, so let's continue on. I'm curious with you talk about your fortunate situation on LinkedIn and the fact that you've grown so much. But any role models out there that inspire your work, either that personally or you're fans of, you're a fan of that inspires what you do.
Yeah, I think honestly, I was thinking about this and it's like I think I find a role model in everyone right now.
Hmm.
I figured out recently, like kind of when I came more into my own and had the space to do my business and think through the things that I wanted, that I really love people.
Yep.
Um, and I think you can learn something from everybody. But like, obviously there's like the Zaha Hadid and the Genie Gang
Hmm.
that you look up to, and you're
Yep.
just like, wow,
Right.
just amazed at what they've been able to do. And there's of course a lot of other amazing women who have accomplished like enormous feats in architecture. But I also like look up to Jean Cohn and Korb and one of my like favorite structures professors at Harvard. And I learn a lot from a lot of different people. And I think one thing that I consistently see is that like the people that I admire are people with passion for
Yep.
their craft, that they love they love what they do and they put a lot of work into it, but they're also like there's a very deep sense of humility to their work and to their approach. And it's like that great things, great architecture, great anything cannot happen without the like humility to ask yourself if you're what you're creating is really good. you
Right.
know a lot of sort of like obsession also that's involved in it. So I admire a lot of people who can create something amazing.
Very cool. And you're in obviously following nicely in that footstep and in that approach. So that makes sense. I like it. I like it. And
A lot to live up to there.
hey, it's just a matter of time. You're rolling. You're rolling. I've been really lucky. I've had some amazing female influencers on this podcast, in the last couple of years. And it's one thing that I always ask them because it's something I really want to continue to grow is that the influence of women in our glass industry, but also in the design industry. And so I'm just curious, what can what can we be doing, from your standpoint, to attract more women to this space, to the building product space, the architectural space? Because I know there's a lot more Sophia Panovas out there that we should be attracting to our world. So what do you suggest that we should do to be able to reach out and gain in those areas?
Yeah, I think a simple answer is just being there, you know, being present, not just having your head down and focused on, your work. I think women are really good at that, though. I'll be honest. Like,
Hmm.
we created a sort of an EDI group initiative in my last office, and it was mostly women
Right.
who were focused on that, and they were folding that in to their daily lives, and they cared about that, and they wanted to be, you know, approachable.
Sure.
They wanted to be open. So I think we're naturally caring about that, whether that's because of just how we are, or that's because of our history in the industry, or whatever it is, that we understand that there's barriers, mental, barriers that
Yeah.
women go through, and other barriers, obviously.
Yep.
So I think that there's like so many organizations here in Boston. As soon as I started my firm, people were like, well, what do you want to join? And I'm like, there's 5,000 things I could join. I don't
Right.
know. So I'm just going to go, year by year and join one. This year I was on part of the Professional Women in Construction, and it was on the Scholarship and Outreach Committee. And that was awesome. I met
Super.
some kick-ass women there.
Yep.
Very cool stuff. And, there's a lot of national organizations. Like obviously there's Boston chapters to a lot of national organizations. And so anytime I show up to any of these events, I feel like I can find somebody, a woman there that supports me and
Yep.
already like asks me and starts like just connecting me with people and sharing their knowledge and sort of like passing on things that they've learned. And I want to be that person too. Like I want to become that person to other women as well, because it's, well, there's fulfillment in that. And if you can really help somebody and make a difference in their life, I don't think there's anything better than that. You know,
Yeah.
obviously we have to make money and be and live and all of this, but making a difference in somebody's life is really, really valuable.
I,
Um,
Yeah, I think you've nailed it, because one thing I noticed we've done at our various events, Glass Build America and the Building Envelope Contractors Conference, is we've had these networking gather ups, meetups, and I'm noticing that mentor protege thing really, really working, because it's really kind of allowed those relationships to blossom, and I think that's a great way to continue to kind of grow this thing, because I think both sides are looking for that. The people in the mentor sort of position want to kind of build from behind them, and the
yep.
people in the protege position are looking up at people that have succeeded and say, hey, what did you do? What can I do? And
Yep.
then I think it has that push and that pull to go forward. So I like what you've said there, that you're putting yourself out there, and I like it. I think you're on the right track.
Yeah, and I think we need to have more open and like frank conversations, honestly,
Yes.
not amongst women, but amongst all of us in the industry. There's a lot of issues, you know, and in construction, there's a lot of issues with mental health, and there's a lot of issues with pay in like architecture,
Yep.
and, you know, being able to whatever, you know, there's so many different things, and like work culture and all that, how to approach it. So there's a lot of opportunity for being kind of very open and honest on these things. And that's what I kind of try to do on LinkedIn about at least my
Hmm.
journey, in order to kind of just say that it's okay to talk about these things and that we should talk about them. And like I had a couple friends in my last office that were really good at, you know, approaching the new hires and asking them how they were doing. And, you know, for better or worse, whatever it means, like we all need to be in that role, because the new people who come in, they're not going to go to their boss
No.
who's, you know, 30 years older than them and tell them like, oh, I have a problem with your boss, with the other boss. You know,
Right.
they're not going to be able to talk about the challenges that they're having with people who are not closer to them, right?
Yep.
There's that affinity bias
Hmm. Hmm.
that's
Yep.
definitely present in any situation, but you have to be able to come to someone and say, hey, I've been in your situation, I kind of feel like maybe you're feeling this way, do you want to talk to me about it? It's safe, you know, we can do this. And it's within organizations, it's across organizations, it's maybe mentorship or whatever. And I think like it just needs to be much more accessible to
Yeah.
people.
Yeah, and I do think we have to continue to grow. Speaking overall in the building product space, and really specifically in our glass and glazing industry, we
Uh-huh.
have to continue to grow these discussions and these dialogues, because you're right. There's so much out there that needs to be addressed still, and improved upon, and there's still barriers that we have to get over. But the more we can continue to shine light on it, the better we can be, and then bringing out the success stories. And
That's
that's
right.
the thing. People need to see that. So I like what you have to say. And I'm a big culture guy. And I think a lot of what you're
Yeah.
talking about is culture.
Yeah.
Some companies have good culture and some do not,
Yeah.
and that's why when you end up in a company that does not have a good culture, you need somebody else to lean on to be able to figure out, okay, am I going forward with this thing? And when you have good culture, everybody's singing Kumbaya and getting along, and it's nice.
Yeah,
So,
and it's hard to sort of like lay it on the leadership all the time, you know,
right.
because leadership, they have their own issues, and you need to be able to talk like 360, right? And really address those things in all directions. And like I remember having kind of a conversation in a more of a group setting with our bosses and people in our company, and they talked about their insecurities and their fears and their troubles, and it was like, oh, you're not just, you know, the the person telling me what to do, you also have issues. It's just kind of like a simple act, but
Sure.
it brings us all together in that way. It kind of levels the, you know, the field a little bit.
Sure,
um
sure. Bring some perspective to light too, and that helps.
yeah.
That helps. That's
Yeah.
good. That's good. A few more to go. I'm with Sophia Panova, principal at So-ZHA, and find her online, her company online, her architectural firm online, www.so-zha.com, and see everything she's got going on. And so obviously, I'm a glass and glazing guy. And
Mhm.
that's where I come from. And I know you've talked about it in your various LinkedIn, walks and talks when you point out glass and glazing.
Uh-huh.
Has your doing some of your designs, and you said earlier, you definitely have a wide range going on right now. Any thoughts on the glass and metal products that you utilize? Any go-to products that you like, or you just kind of roll with once you collaborate with somebody, you figure out what's best?
Yeah, it's interesting because the first thing that I think of now is like I'm remembering a trip to Corning to see
Hmm.
the glass factory there
Yep.
out in New York, as an elective trip at the GSD. And it's like not only is it beautiful country out there, I was also like really inspired and motivated by what I saw at the Museum of Glass, and it was really kind of special to understand the history of it. So there's definitely value to that. So anybody out there, go visit.
Yep.
Um, I'll be honest, I don't have like a favorite
Okay.
necessarily
Totally.
because it's not been up to me
Right.
since I started working at the other firm at William Ron. We used a lot of Conair systems for public projects at the office. And it's a very reliable curtain wall manufacturer, obviously, and easy to work with. So
Yes.
there's something to be said also about how easy it is to work with a company. And we've used a lot of Viricon, a lot of low E, a lot of low iron for special areas. We spent a lot of time picking like the right gray for this spandrel color,
Yep.
that was like most closely was able to recede into the background of the gray of the inside of the building. And we spent a lot of time in the sun, looking at the grayness and trying to understand neutral tones in the sun and the nighttime and all that. So there's definitely an aspect of like the visual side of
Yes.
things. And now I'm in residential on my own. There's a lot of residential, so you get your Anderson and your Pella and maybe a Marvin if I'm ever lucky enough to get like a 12-foot wide folding door installed in somebody's backyard if anybody's interested. Um, and of course, there's like you're the Europeans. I collaborated on a project recently where we used Rahajaneo windows and doors,
Hmm.
and they have like the tilt turn mechanism.
Yep.
And I have something similar in my house, and I love it. And obviously, RG is like a very robust product with clean sight lines and tight seal. So that's important, especially now with more and more, passive house stuff going in, especially Massachusetts net zero passive house, all that kind of stuff. And this new code upgrade that's happening as well soon, very soon. So the other thing I want to do is I want to throw in a couple plugs
Yep.
here
Hey.
from my LinkedIn friends. One of them is Robert Weeks, who used to work as BD for Jameson Rica Fenestration in Cleveland.
Yep.
And for like the better part of 8 years, you're familiar?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, and so Jameson Rica is like a company that provides very high preservation and rehabilitation of historic buildings. So if you visit their site, they do really unbelievable work. I'm kind of in awe of people who do really good preservation restoration work because I feel it's really important, and it's
It's
also
huge.
very, very difficult to
Yes.
do considering old buildings. And so I think they've done this for over 50 years,
Yeah.
and they can like engineer and procure and install very, very accurate replications of historical windows, and meet all the national parks requirements and historic tax credits. So things like that, they're very related.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, and before you tell me, I know you probably have another plug, but the Jameson and Rico, we used to sell tempered glass and insulated glass from my Fabricator that my brother, really built in Pittsburgh, and so we were in
oh,
Pittsburgh, there in Cleveland. They were a customer of ours for many years before we sold the company. So definitely real familiar with them and their work over the years. A fantastic company.
there it
And,
is.
and I've seen Robert Weeks on LinkedIn, probably, back and forth with you. So the name I definitely recognize. I've never met him, so I have to make a better effort to meet him. And anybody else that you wanted to plug, or is that it?
No, that's it for this round.
I like it. I like it. And you mentioned some very good companies in there. I've had people on the podcast from Conair, from Viracon, great companies, really, really good in our industry and do a nice job taking care of all of us. So for you as an architect, what are the hot technologies that are helping you do your job better these days? And the reason I ask is we always want to learn, how we can, work better, in the architecture community has a subcontractor in most cases along the way. But what are the tools that you're using at your disposal?
Obviously right now there's like AI is a hot topic.
Yes.
And I think like people are kind of going crazy about the image generation, but to me, that's not really where the conversation lives or should live. I think it's all about workflow and improving like Revit and the entirety of a life of a project, which is enormous,
Right.
from options in the Revit file to like the reconstruction of the model in Navisworks or whatever it is to the actual building. So you actually build the model sometimes 3 times depending on the size of the project. But I think that this aspect of it is really important in the workflow. Once we have families built in to Revit models that can help us be very, very accurate in how we're drawing. And obviously we need to just improve on that. And I've talked to a couple companies now that are startups on their own, like using their own money
Right.
basically to connect manufacturers to platforms that allow them to like create models, upload information, metadata, everything that then can be used by the cost estimator and the contractor and go down the line in a much more robust way.
Yes.
So I think there's definitely a lot of work to do there. And I think there's a lot of opportunity as well for anybody who wants to start that up. Also efficiency, just like Revit isn't the most efficient program, we can improve it. Obviously, most people are in Revit. And I think anything that manufacturers and product providers can, can provide us more models. The
Yes.
more models, the better, the easier. So that's like the thing that I'm right up against right now. But obviously, there's a huge amount of improvement as well. Like we can manufacture complex geometries and we can work with a lot of really interesting things. I did a ceiling for one of the buildings that I worked on at William Ron, and they like created, custom metal studs for like curvature, ceiling curvatures that I was doing that was like variable. Each rib was different
Right.
and had like multiple, or how to say, like double curved, um, basically geometries. And so there's a lot of cool stuff out there
Yeah.
that I feel like we need more information about, because I think it's getting so much easier to do some of these things. And like, yeah, let's not just do straight orthogonal walls.
Sure, sure. And on the Revit thing, Revit's been around a long time, so it's
Oh yeah.
amazing. It's amazing that it has been somewhat stagnant with its growth. And I mean, do you think it's just one of those things where people got comfortable with the old reliable and they just didn't push for taking that next step forward, or what? Because it's not like it's just amazing that it has not evolved and grown the way you would think it would.
Yeah, you're right. And I think part of it is because it's really hard to revamp a system like that. Like
True.
you basically would have to start from scratch.
Yeah.
So you do have to build in slowly and try to like not break what you've already built in some way. So there are people out there trying to like take Revit down and trying to build their own thing. And we'll see. I mean,
Yeah.
there's always a new software.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's important. I think that is. All right, so before we wrap up, again, I'm with Sophia Panova, principal at So-ZHA, website www.so-zha.com. This has been a fun conversation. I'm just curious, anything else the glass and glazing industry can do to support you and support your profession, other than following you on LinkedIn and commenting how great it is to see you on LinkedIn and what you're providing there. But anything else we can do?
I mean, it's, what, education, always, always, always education, and
Yes.
in whatever form, any form of
Love that
education.
answer.
Because you guys do a lot of great work with NGA on that for sure in that regard. And I think education is key because again, like we need to stay as current as possible, especially now. There's so much new tech out there. We need to be able to understand like what are the new ways of doing things? And for people like me who like are just starting out, I can't afford like 40 different softwares, and
Right.
quite frankly, not even a company of 50 can do that. So, you know, I think it's really important for us to do things like lunch and learns, and for people like me who don't have lunch and learns, you know, to have other ways of providing information to people, like, oh, hey, maybe there's a beta software out there that you can test, and people have approached me with that I can both,
Nice.
you know, get something out of it, and maybe they can get my feedback, whatever, and there's
Yes.
some mutual benefit there. Like I remember a lunch and learn at the office where I used to work, and somebody came in from insert company name.
Hmm.
I don't remember. And they spoke about how like new technologies are advancing in tempered laminated glass, and it means that we can get like monolithic glass up to 33 feet with a radius as small as 5 feet. And
Gotcha.
I was like blown away by
Yeah.
that. And I was like, that's crazy, because it's always fun to realize how little you know and
Yeah.
what's actually out there. And I know that company that I worked for will probably not be able to have an opportunity to use something like that, but to know that it's out there
Yes.
is important,
Yeah. That's
right?
it.
It just is.
And I
And
yeah, I love your answer, because the thing that I think wears us down is everyone, I think in our industry, at least the people that I hang around with, really believe in the educational aspect. But I think a lot of
yeah,
times they give up because maybe that, like you said, it doesn't get utilized. They don't end up in a spec. They feel like they're beaten down. They feel like nobody's listening to them. But it's one of those things you just have to keep chopping at the tree there.
yes,
Yeah, yeah, because you never know. And that product stuck in your head. And I know that if push came to shove and something lands on your desk, you will figure out what the company's name is. You'll go back into your notes, and then you will utilize it. So that education will have paid off.
yeah,
But I do think that that's one thing we struggle with, is keeping at it because we give up.
yes, yes, yes. And it's hard because you know you get kind of like bogged down in the details of your work, and there's a lot of detail in our work.
Yep.
So I think like that, and also maybe resources, and being able to like combine forces with other people in the building industry, because there's a lot of inefficiencies and redundancies and a lot of like ways to improve and create a better product life cycle
Right.
between all of us. So, you know, in the same way, like I think the glazing industry can connect to more of other industries, like, you know, even like just fabricators and things like that are out there testing things like R&D kind of
Hmm.
thing, you know, at MIT or Harvard, wherever, and you know, provide informations and do like interesting case studies, things like that. And I'm not really sure what the best platform is. I think there's the right mode for every different platform, but like one guy I follow on LinkedIn, I'm going to do a plug for him too, is Adrian Lowenstein.
Lowenstein. Yep, he was one of my first guests on this pod. I knew him before he was putting videos up every day. I feel like I was a part of his
Oh,
growth. Yeah.
yeah.
Yes.
Oh my God. He's so kick butt. I
Yeah.
love his
Oh yeah.
stuff.
I
It's
knew him
amazing.
when I knew him. I could say I knew him when. So I feel. Yeah. Yeah.
So he's like business development
Yes.
at
Skyline windows.
in
Absolutely.
New
Yeah.
York. So he just does these like amazing videos that are
Yeah.
super informational, and they're also really engaging,
Yep.
and like people interact with him all the time, and like I like everything he does, and
Yeah.
just like I get inspired by him too, and he supports me as well. And it's like that kind of stuff, you know, fantastic. Like
Yeah.
I love to see people walk around their building that they're working on and talk about the thing that they're doing in high detail. How interesting.
Yeah, his passion is off the charts too. He gets it,
Oh
and
yeah.
and does a great job. And so I do think that, you bring up some good points that we have to continue to work on as an industry to provide the architectural community what they need and stay with it. And Adrian's definitely a kind of a unicorn from that level. But we're seeing more and more of folks that are starting to understand the value of explaining things and spending some time. And then for you personally, I know you're always looking for that collaboration and that idea. So next year when AIA is in Washington D.C., that's not a far jaunt for you. NGA will have our blueprint for collaboration event. You've got to be there. That'll be,
Okay.
that'll be a tremendous opportunity for you and us as well. So I think we've learned something from you today, and then we can kind of put it all into practice as we go forward. This has been
Okay.
very cool.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll see you there. I will see you there. I'll go.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I look forward to that. And if I don't see you before that in Boston at that Ethiopian restaurant, so that
Right.
we've got that
That's right.
going. But I loved having you on. Sophia Panova, principal at So-ZHA. See her company, her firm, www.so-zha.com. Thank you, thank you, thank you for taking the time. I know
Thank
you're a busy
you.
person, so I appreciate you coming on the podcast.
Thank you so much. It was awesome. Great to meet you and great to talk to you.
Same. Thank you. Okay, next up, I am thrilled to be joined by Mark Rabinowitz, president of Paul Rabinowitz Glass. I was struggled to get that out. Find them online at rabglass, rabglass.com. Great website and great company. And I'm thrilled to get to talk to Mark because we have some similarities with family businesses going way back. But before we get into it, Mark, thanks for doing the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Max. I've been a big fan of your podcast and what you bring to the industry for years. So I'm very proud and happy to be on with you.
Thank you. I mean, it means a lot. And I'm a huge fan of you and your company. I've said it on the blog. You guys do, great work, and I'm excited to kind of, dig into, you and what's going on there at the company. So we'll start with you. It's a family business. The business started in the 30s, 1931. But you personally, I didn't want to be in the glass business. I didn't want to follow my brother and my dad into the glass business. And so I went into sports production for a little bit before they got me in, and then I'm here for the rest of my life. How about you? Did you always want to be in the glass business? What was your path to this world?
So I actually had no idea what the glass business was, as opposed to some of my from some of my friends in the industry that grew up sorting caulk, right?
Right.
I had no idea. My grandfather actually grew up and was born in Kiev, which
Okay.
in the day was Russia.
Right.
My grandfather actually was a glass installer, and he came over, and my grandmother was the bookkeeper.
I love it.
So my dad, after graduating from Temple, was a stockbroker, doing pretty well for himself. My grandfather, Paul, had one of the first cataract surgeries,
Oh, wow.
and um, they actually botched it. So he went blind in one eye.
Oh, wow.
And that was late 1975. And in 1976, my dad said, you're not going to be able to drive anymore. What are we going to do? And he tried to sell the business, or what was then the business.
Right.
And my dad finally said to himself, wow, I think I can give this a shot. It's a real people business. Let me give it a run. And I remember, like yesterday, my dad, and I was only 10 years old, but my dad came home. He says, I'm getting into the glass business. And I watched him, as he called the hunt and peck method, at night, typing
Yeah.
invoices.
Oh my gosh.
I mean,
Yes. Yes.
like yesterday. So for me, when I graduated Syracuse University in 1988, I had no idea what the glass business was. I went out and I sold folding cartons for a company called D Paper.
Okay.
2 years later, my dad and I had a little bit of an issue, but 2 years later, my dad and I saw each other in town. He knew I was in between jobs. I was getting ready to move to Rhode Island. And he said, hey, you want to give the glass business a shot? Just like that. Literally
Yeah.
just like that. And that's how that's how it came to be. I gave it a shot.
Funny that it's literally the same language that my brother used on me. I was working at the NBC affiliate in Pittsburgh, and he said, "Hey, maybe it's time you give it a shot." It's just so funny that it's literally almost the same exact language, and that's wild. Then, did you go to Syracuse for broadcasting? Since Syracuse was such a, that's the cradle of all the great broadcasters.
So a lot of my friends did. I did not.
Okay.
I went to school. I was an economics and psychology major. I always wanted
Psychology psychology has to come in handy now in the glass business.
to be, you think? But it's funny. You say you want to give it a shot. So many family businesses are extended to the next generation
Yeah.
with those words.
Yes.
Do you want to give it a shot?
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
unbelievable.
No doubt, no doubt. Interesting. I did, you and I have talked a few times, but I had not heard that story. So that's cool. So, all right. So you get convinced to join and give it a shot. And now, kind of the rest is history in a way, because you've come in there and the company is amazing. You guys have done great work, and you've weathered the storms. And if you're coming in there in the 90s, you got to weather a few storms along the way. So talk about, first off, for those that don't know Paul Rabinowitz Glass, what you guys do, what you specialize in, and what your focus is going forward.
Okay, so first of all, we have Paul Rabinowitz Glass. We have two ends of our business.
Okay.
We have the new construction end. We specialize in interior fit outs, office fronts. We do up to a 3-story office building. And then we have a service business where we're the leader in 3 states. We handle 24-hour emergency service, glass replacements, door repairs, really old school business with a new mindset.
Gotcha.
Is what we do. You talk about the storms, right? You want to get into the storms. I can tell you some storms. I can tell you that
Yeah.
growing a business might actually be the easy part.
Yeah.
Having to shrink a business and telling somebody that they're out of a job,
It's the worst.
that is something that scars you for life.
It's the worst. It is the worst. Absolutely. No doubt. And again, just because of the way of the world, I mean, you've been in the business through a couple recessions, through 9/11 and the fall back there, the big recession in, 2008, 09, 10, and then of course COVID. So I mean, you've seen it all.
Wait, how about the Y2K, when we all thought our computers and electricity were going to shut down?
That too. Oh yeah, that was a huge worry, a huge worry. So no, you've survived it and thrive now. I mean, I know that it's tough. The downsizing is always hard, but the thing is you're resilient, people are resilient, and you've done some amazing things over these years.
Yeah, I'll tell you, the one thing that's never wavered through the 3 generations. Now, my grandfather, he was not college educated. To the day he passed, he would call himself Paul Rabinowitz in his real Russian accent.
Yep.
Between my grandfather, my dad, and myself, the one thing that has never wavered is we are customer driven.
That's right.
Everything we do, our tagline, as you can see behind me, is "Consider it done," our promise to our customers.
Yep.
We've done it a little bit differently, but everything we do is based on being customer driven.
Yeah.
And that's how you weather it.
Yeah. 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 And it's in a relationship business like this one is, that's huge. That's huge. And so let's talk. I mean, for me, it's funny. I was thinking about, the question I was asking you is, this next question is, all the great projects you guys have done, is there one that stands out as the most memorable? And I thought to myself about, what mine was. And it's kind of funny because my most memorable project doesn't even exist anymore. We did the glass on the Palace of Auburn Hills, outside of Detroit, where the Detroit Pistons played, and that structure's been torn down. So my history's already gone. But how about you? What's the most memorable project you guys have ever done?
So I'll tell you what makes a project memorable for me.
Yes.
That is when somebody says, whether it's internal, external, somebody says to me, "You guys can't do that. You can't do that."
Drives you. Yes.
That is what, so I can remember, 201 King of Prussia Road, the owner of what's now Brandywine Realty Trust, Mark Rubenstein, calls me up and says, "Hey, we have single pane glass in this entire building." And he gives me the lay of the land. He says, "Can we put insulated glass in here?" I went down, I looked at it. My internal project manager, who was with me for a long time, says, "We can't do this." And I said, "What do you mean we can't do this? We're doing it."
Yep.
And we ended up replacing all the glass and putting insulated glass in. We've done some unbelievable projects. Novo Nordisk. We're actually doing right now, it's been 5 phases of the Wells Fargo Center.
Oh, wow. Okay. So that's where the Sixers play, correct?
That's where they play now.
Right.
The big discussion in Philadelphia is whether or not they will move to a new arena on East Market.
Okay. Yeah, well, Wells Fargo, that arena's not that old though, right? I mean, so or is it? It's been around.
So I also love this project because I've watched an older type arena transform itself. So they
Yes.
took all the enclosed, drywall suites, if you will,
Yeah.
and opened it all up with all new fancy bars.
Nice. Okay.
Um, real good the way people flow through the arena, great sight lines. It's not that old. I want to say it's probably 20 something years old, but
Gotcha.
I think they sunk 400 million into it. And we've been involved along the way doing all the interiors, the exterior. It's been a great project.
Cool. Cool. So yeah, you've been through that one, and that's and again, Philadelphia, where you guys are located, is continues to just reinvent itself with so many neat things. I mean, so that's why you're in the heart of it. It's a great place to be.
Yeah, absolutely is.
Awesome, awesome. So I'm with Mark Rabinowitz. He's the president at Paul Rabinowitz Glass out in Philadelphia. Catch them online at rabglass, RABGLASS.com. Great website, great people. And I've got a few more serious questions to go, but a fun one. And curious, because you and I are in a similar age group, but I'm curious what your favorite movie of all time is and why.
Okay, so this is a really good one.
Yeah.
So one of them, but a favorite movie of mine is the Poseidon Adventure,
Oh, okay. All right. All right.
the original one.
The original.
Okay.
Okay.
Why is that? Number one, it had, the cast: Gene
Yeah.
Hackman, Shelley Winters, Ernest Borgnine, Jack Albertson. Great cast,
Yep.
right? I hope I
Yep.
didn't age myself.
No.
Either when you said
Yeah.
we're in the same age group or this movie,
Yep.
right? So if you haven't seen it, the Poseidon Adventure, number one, has a great cast. I think Rab Glass has a great cast.
Yeah.
Derek Garfert, Kat Finnemore, Michelle Roundtree,
Yep.
Steve Weiner. I have a great cast here. My brother Rob Rabinowitz. We have a great cast here.
You do. You have an unbelievable crew there. Absolutely.
Right. So, and here's the segue I'm going to make into the movie. So
Yeah.
they had a very tragic, or what could have been tragic event, right? A tidal wave knocks
Yeah.
over the boat. So what happens? Leadership stands up. Leadership stands up, and it really has shown me that, leaders, although they can be challenged. So if you remember, Ernest Borgnine would challenge Gene Hackman.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
He would say, "Hey, what are you doing there, Reverend?" Right? Did I say that okay?
Yes.
But leaders have to weather the storm.
Yep.
And they have to be accepting to be challenged by others. But at the end of the day, teamwork prevails.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, Gene Hackman made the ultimate sacrifice. And if you remember, killed himself into the firing water to protect and save the
crew.
people that
Yeah.
he was leading.
Yep. Yep.
So that movie, I've seen that movie, 500 times. My wife thinks I'm crazy. I can watch it. She says the boat's still going to go over, and I said, yeah, but these guys are going to still be saved.
Yeah. No, it's beautiful. I love it. I love it. That is a cool favorite movie and a cool favorite reason for it too. I love it. That is awesome. That is awesome. Very cool. And I will watch it completely differently now because of your angle on it. Poseidon
It really
Adventure.
is. It really takes a great movie, again, with great cast.
Yeah.
And you can learn a lot about it, a lot about management and about running a business.
Yeah.
And leadership through that movie.
No doubt. No doubt. That makes sense. And it actually, it segues perfectly into my next question about the fact that you guys have achieved NACC certification. I'm a big, proponent of that. And obviously that takes that effort from, you and your people to, make sure that you've got all your ducks in a row. So talk to me about that process and becoming NACC certified and, how it was and how it's going for you guys.
So NACC certified, they really looked under the hood.
Yeah.
It was challenging. We felt that we had a lot of processes in place. Where we found that we needed to strengthen ourselves was in the supporting documentation.
Yeah.
So now our documentation is so much better than it ever was. We think differently.
Yeah.
We think process. We think about getting better all the time. And that's, again, a team effort from the truck driver all the way up to myself. It doesn't matter. We're always thinking process and what can we do to better this particular process. So it was a great eye opener. But again, we were doing well.
Yeah.
But this has just made us better and dotting our I's and crossing our T's.
That's great. That's great. And I've had, Jeff Dalaba and Ben Beeler on my podcast. A big fan of them and good people, really good people.
Best.
And yeah. And
they really are. I am a huge fan of Ben Beeler.
yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Jeff's a
Ben,
good dude too. Jeff's really good, but I am a huge fan of Ben Beeler. Another family business.
I
When
was
I
just
got
about
into
to
the
say
business,
that. Yep.
Listen, Virginia Glass, they were,
Yeah.
one of my first big suppliers.
Yeah, and I was just about to say that Ben's another one that followed the same sort of path, to get into the business, and is still doing a great job out there. And NACC is a great process, and it doesn't surprise me that Paul Rabinowitz Glass is into it just because of your attitude and your focus going forward, and then the fact that you're getting something and you got something out of it to make you even better is really exciting to hear. I
Yeah,
like that. I
yeah,
like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
So now flipping the script a little bit, you and I talked last week just to kind of catch up. And one of the things you said to me, you said, you need to ask me about the challenges I have. And it's funny because some people like to talk about their challenges and then some people don't. And when I talked to you about the challenges, what really struck me was your passion and your genuine care for this industry. And I think those who know me know that that's runs through my blood, is this industry and how it's going today and how it's going to go tomorrow. But you've recognized some of those challenges. So talk about the challenges you run into, on that daily basis, and what kind of keeps you up at night going forward.
So the challenges, of all the challenges we have, I think the actual glass installation part of it, the means and methods,
Yeah.
are usually not the biggest challenges. The biggest challenges are the contracts that we're signing, right? The legalese.
Yep.
Right? How's up until COVID, did anybody really know what the words force majeure meant?
Nope.
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 Right? So the contracts, that's a real issue. The indemnification clauses, really it's the lawyers. That's number one.
Yeah.
Number two is the hiring and the knowledge transfer to young people.
Yeah.
This business, in order to be successful, okay, and it's many businesses, you have to make the sacrifice. Part of making that sacrifice is being in the office. Okay.
Yes.
It's something that I don't talk about with my oldest daughter. I love her and I'm very proud of her. But in 5 years being out of school, she's never been in an office and she's doing very well.
Yeah.
But in this business,
you got to be in there.
You need to make sacrifices and you need to be in the office in order to gain the knowledge from the people that have been here.
Yeah.
And then last but not least, just collections. I mean, it's, as I said to you before, collecting money is very, very challenging. The days of, just without a phone call, the checks coming in the mail.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen like it used to. It's just, business is very tough in today's world.
It truly is, and those are all big pieces, and the contractual thing's the thing that just eats at me, because you would think that we could get past that. It just seems like we're always running on that hamster wheel, and we can you're almost fixing one thing and then dealing with the next, and like you said, the force majeure and just all the things that get hung on the glazing contractor at the end of the day. It's amazing. It's like back to that treadmill thing. We are the treadmill that somebody doesn't use it. You're hanging all your empty clothes on it. And that's us. We get everything. We get all the crap.
Yeah. So that's what's happening. I'm a believer that if I make a mistake or we make a mistake, we will own it.
Yes.
And we're very good about it. But if you make a mistake or you create the mistake, you own it. Don't try to push. Don't make your issues my issues.
Yeah.
And that's basically the contract. The contract saying, well, if I don't get paid, you don't get paid. Well, if there's an issue with the material being installed in front of you and you install your material, you're in trouble. It's nonstop.
Yeah. Yeah. My favorite's delegated design, which gives
gives
them the ultimate opening of just whatever they want to do. And it's all your fault if you can't figure that out.
Right. And then you want to be paid in a timely manner.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, a whole different conversation.
No doubt. It is. It's a battle we all go through. But I think that's what makes this industry great, is that we nothing comes easy to us.
No.
Nothing comes easy.
No.
Which makes us all better. And I think that's why we are a relationship-based industry, and that's why so many people get along, and you have so much respect for other people, because we all have to fight those battles.
So it's, it's a great segue. You're doing a great job, Max. You were
Thank
awesome.
you. Thank you.
So
I didn't go to Syracuse though.
right.
I'm not Bob Costas, Mike Tirico, like your other classmates there.
Well, actually, a guy that I went to school with, he's 2 years younger than I am, is Iron Eagle.
Oh, the future CBS Sports. He's
Yeah,
taking
and
over the
actually
tournament.
his son Noah
Yes.
is actually there too. So I see Iron from time to time.
Ian's the
Um,
best. He's the best. But go ahead.
so
Sorry.
I would be remiss if, you talk about, it's a people driven business, and the
Yeah.
relationships, and they're so important. So I'd be remiss if we have an association here in Philadelphia, AGMA,
Yes.
which is the Architectural Glass and Metal Association.
Yes.
Lisa Godlewski is the executive director.
Yep.
We are competitors, sometimes fierce competitors, but the respect that we have for the 30 or so different glazing contractors is unbelievable. If I'm short a piece of material and I need something, they'll help, versus if somebody else needs something, I will help them. And secondly, our relationship with Local 252.
Yeah.
Our union labor, starting from Joe Ashdale. Joe Ashdale was one of my dad's best friends, very instrumental in helping us. And through the years, we have had some amazing labor, from the union,
right,
and guys that just care, and they put out a great effort, and they make sure that everything's done correctly. So I'd be remiss if I didn't. So, they've been a big part of our success.
Huge. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And the fact that you have that relationship, again, it just makes such a difference. Everybody's, rowing the right way, and dead on about AGMA. It's that's another area where I'm huge into. I love, the local associations that really care. I was just in Houston at the Houston Area Glass Association, spoke at their lunch, and it just, those folks, they're all rowing the boat the same way. Everybody has their own priorities, but at the end of the day, we all have to get better, and we get better together.
Yeah,
So.
and I've been sitting on the board for many years, and we really do sit around our board table, and we don't care about our individual companies. We care about the industry.
Yeah. Absolutely. And that's how it has to be. I love it. I love
Right.
it. Again, a couple more questions coming up, but I'm with Mark Rabinowitz, president of Paul Rabinowitz Glass. Catch him online at rabglass, RABGLASS.com. And so the nice thing again about you is, your company may have started in 1931, but I always see that you're on the cutting edge of things, and it kind of goes back to what you said before, is when somebody tells you can't do something, you figure out a way to do it. So I'm curious if there's new products and technology that you're running into out there that has you impressed, excited, kind of, an extra pep in your step. Anything new and exciting for you guys?
So I would say, software is always evolving. We have not actually gotten very heavy into BIM,
Okay.
but I know it's there.
Right.
I will tell you, the electrochromatic glass, the smart glass,
Yeah.
I think is cutting edge. There's been a big discussion on what percentage of a building's surface should be glass versus other substrates.
That's right. The battle for the
And
wall. Yeah.
I will tell you that the smart glass is evolutionary. We actually did a project recently. It ended last year at the new Penn Medical Center.
Okay.
And all of the patient rooms, actually, instead of putting blinds, we used smart glass.
Okay.
So every time you flip the switch, the glass becomes opaque and you can't see into it. So if a doctor walks in and wants to see his patient, instead of pulling the blinds down, getting dusty on the blinds, he flips the switch, the glass fogs up, or becomes opaque. You get your privacy. There's a bunch of buildings in Philadelphia also with smart glass. That the stronger the sun gets, and the stronger the sun gets, the darker the glass gets.
Sure. Yep.
Which helps the U value and helps the energy efficiency of the glass.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. On both of those things, both of those styles, the hospital setting's huge because of just the hygiene. The hygiene alone, that glass can provide. And my friend Kevin Roth from Privacy Glass Solutions down in Florida, they do so many different styles of hospital style glass with not only the switchable but other things. And the thing that turned me on about it was the hygiene. and especially
You're right.
post-COVID, you can't be, you got to be paying attention to that. So it's great that you guys are into both of those things. And I think that's where glass has to continue to get, smarter,
Yes.
and that's where I see things like the transparent photovoltaic and the VIG and, some of the other things that are coming down the pike that, we got to make our space as smart as it can be. That's
Yep,
how I
no
see it.
question about it, because we are competing against other materials for the surface of the building.
Yes. And I think that's where, back to one of your points about everybody working together for the betterment of the industry, is that we have to realize that brick and wood and other materials, they want what we have. They want what we have. They want more area. And we've
No
had to
question.
battle things back with window to wall ratio. So it is important that we work together and we keep our heads and our eyes on the prize.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes, no doubt, no doubt. So before I wrap up, curious, the one thing I ask most of my guests is how they see their business and how they see the market going forward. And I think it's really an interesting question for you, because you're in an area, kind of in that mid-Atlantic Northeast sort of corridor. Sometimes you guys are super, super hot. Sometimes you're the first ones to see the soft spots. How is business looking for you rest of this year and into 2024?
So again, for us, our backlog is solid.
Great.
I will tell you the biggest discussion, the biggest talking point that we're all having, and we had it earlier, is getting people back to work.
Yes.
Okay, in the office.
Yes.
You need to be in the office. Office drives construction, right? It's not just residential.
Yep.
In our business, we don't do any residential. So it's really, it is really, the people have to have their butts in the seats in the offices.
Yeah.
That's been a talking point. It was a huge talking point in the recent Philadelphia mayoral election.
Gotcha.
But again, as I said originally, we are customer driven. So we will weather any storm that we face, as long as we know, again, our tagline and our promise to our customer, consider it done. As long as we stay customer focused, if they tell us that they want us to start doing something out, cleaning the windows, maybe we'll start doing that. We'll figure it out. We will always figure it out. That's something my dad always told me. Have the customer base, and you'll be okay.
It's a good piece of advice, and figuring it out. It's that resiliency. It's the diversifying. It may not come to cleaning the windows, but it could come to getting into a different space, and doing different things. And you are so right. The return to work, and I think we were all very confident coming into 2023 that, the return to work was upon us, and then it just died off. It didn't happen the way we thought. And I assume you're seeing that in Philly and in the Mid-Atlantic as well.
So it's died off because people are results driven. So you have the lawyers and the professionals, and I don't mean to pick on lawyers like I have this whole podcast, but sorry guys. But if they are billing and their billings are back to pre-COVID numbers,
right,
and the professionals don't want to be in the office, what is the managing partner going to say?
Yeah, you can't.
Right?
There's nothing to say.
There's nothing to say.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what's happening. Philadelphia is certainly not a leader at all in getting people back into the office. There's many, many vacant office space, office buildings, and it's problematic. It is absolutely problematic.
And it's problematic more than just the office itself. It's the trickle down of everything else it affects, the restaurants and all the other service industries,
the dry cleaners,
the dry cleaners, especially. Anytime I go to the dry cleaner, and if I'm only picking up and not dropping off, he looks at me very sad. He goes, "You're not dropping off this time?" I'm like,
sorry. That's correct. And the other thing is knowledge transfer, like we talked about before. Knowledge transfer is the key. People laugh and always talk about the water fountain discussion or the coffee pot discussion. There is something to be said for that. I mean, I'm not that old to remember when I was, just getting out of school, and I would learn from, I had some mentors that would teach me, and just by being around them and watching how they dress and watching how they speak on the phone and watching how they engage with other people. Tremendous learning that I'm not sure I don't think people that are not in the office are getting that knowledge transfer.
No. And that is definitely a fear going forward. And, there are a lot of ways to educate, by the book, but, and more now than ever, especially like on-demand learning, like my glass class, which is tremendous, but you still need that, that one-on-one, you need that touch, that feel sort of thing. And that has me worried. We have to figure out a way to make that better going forward for our industry, for sure.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate your time. You and I could go on and on and on, but you have a big business to run, and I don't want to screw that up. I've been very fortunate to have Mark Rabinowitz, president of Paul Rabinowitz Glass, on rabglass.com. Check them out. Great website, great people, a tremendous team. Also, go see the Poseidon Adventure, the original, because now you will not watch it. You will not watch it the same way. It has a meaning now that Mark has put to it that works. But thank you so much for doing this. And I look forward to seeing you in person at Glassbuild in the fall. We got to get you to appear in Atlanta. Will we get to see you there?
I will be in Atlanta. Yeah. And Max, I appreciate you having me on and for what you do in the business. It's amazing.
Well, thank
It is
you.
amazing.
Thank you. And I look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Talk to you.
Okay. Next up, I've got Bill Wilson, Specified Systems CEO. Bill has built a heck of a company in the Pittsburgh area. You can find them online at www.specifiedsystems.com. Bill, thank you so much for doing the podcast.
It's great to be with you, Max.
I'm thrilled to have you here. Yeah,
I'm going to say finally. Well, I must have been like number 700 on the list of people to get.
No, but I will say that your agent, which happens to be my brother, I mean, he's been pounding me on this, that it has to happen, and we're going to talk about him along the way too. But
I hope so.
I wanted to have you on because you've got this incredible range of things that you've done in your career and you're doing right now as well, and I think it's a good learning experience for the industry. But let's start with Specified. This is a company that you built and has grown and now is consistently on every top 50 Glazer list. That has to blow you away. I mean, that has to, really hit the heart. And B, talk about, how the whole journey has been.
Well, so I have 47 full-time years of work in the building product industry. I was fortunate, I guess, to grow up in a small town called 84, Pennsylvania.
Right. 84 Lumber.
I started my career in high school working for 84 Lumber Company.
Wow. Okay.
Went to college, dropped out of college because I was broke, and went to work full time for 84, and things just kept turning and turning. And one day I found myself working on the inside sales team at Three Rivers Aluminum, which became Traco.
Okay.
I spent some time there, then worked for various other manufacturing companies. And in 1992, decided to bite the bullet and start my own company, Specified Systems. So
Gotcha.
We started from nothing. I had I don't know, $2,000 in the bank, and we financed the company on $43,000 of home equity credit and credit cards. I came from, having an executive management position to all of a sudden being out there all alone. And I'm telling you, all alone is an honest assessment, because nobody wants to be associated with somebody who's going to fail.
Right.
And most people who start businesses, people look at it and they say, oh, he's not going to make it. He's not going to make it. So you don't have any friends either.
Yeah.
So it's a tough start.
No doubt. And you left a Traco operation at that point that was doing things, doing massive work, and they were, growing and going like crazy. So it was a big risk for you.
Well, it was, but I had some good ideas. I had worked for some great and smart people.
Mm-hmm.
You talk about the list of people who influenced me as employers. Joe Hardy at 84 Lumber Company, Barry Lormer at Busy Beaver Building Centers, Dennis Kelleher at Cassidy Pierce Commercial Service Triangle Fasteners, the Wolf family at NAPCO. I mean, I learned a lot, and I had a model. Engineered construction products from Frederick, Maryland, Carl Barron. They're still out there, next generation. Curtis is running them. Carl operated out of a house. He bootstrapped. He built this great business. He and I became pretty close, and I relied on him to create this framework for how I could also do that.
Yeah, and you did, and now it's really been a heck of a run for Specified. I mean, you guys do, so many different unique projects. You're definitely not a cookie cutter, for sure, which is exciting, and you're always looking for innovation. But let's talk about a couple things that that Specified Systems does that I think really kind of plays into what's going on in the world right now. You do a lot of schools.
Yes.
And you do a lot of commercial, businesses and offices, and schools obviously are in the spotlight because of protective glazing. And I know that's something that, you've been, really, pounding the desk about. And you and I are on the same page. We have the products. Let us use them. So talk a little bit about how Specified getting into the different areas, the schools and so on, and growing, but how we also can get these products out there, and what you're trying to do.
Well, we've had a pretty high profile in schools in Western Pennsylvania. As I tell anybody who lives in Western Pennsylvania, they go, "What are you doing?" or "Where do you live?" And
Yeah.
we can name a school, and they go, and that's our stuff.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what's really interesting is the most recent shooting in Nashville.
Yeah.
I contacted the president of our school board, Cannon McMillan School District, where my grandkids go to school. My daughter teaches there. And I said, "Look, your schools aren't secure. I know all of your schools. I can help you guys. I will consult with you for nothing. I will tell you what you can do simply to improve school security." Put it out there months ago. "Oh yeah, I'm going to give this to my facilities guy." Nothing. No calls, nothing. And the solutions are simple. If you understand the basic criminal mentality of these people and how they're going to go about doing what they're doing, a couple of mag locks, some video security, and some laminated glass, and you can at least buy enough time for law enforcement and the people who can handle that situation to get there. Had that Nashville shooter shot through annealed laminated glass, would have cut the crap out of herself trying to get through it rather than dropping tempered glass on her.
Regular tempered's not an answer at all.
No.
And film on top of tempered is not an answer at all.
No.
So I mean,
they need to be wounded. They need to be wounded getting through.
Yeah.
West Virginia, interesting enough, has in their code all grade level windows have to be laminated.
Interesting.
It's a great solution. It's a great deterrent.
But it is frustrating that you have kids, grandchildren, involved in that school district, and that's the problem I'm running into, and I see, is that just trying to move these folks off the center is driving me crazy. And also just the fact that they fall in love with things like video surveillance. But you could have the video surveillance until the cows come home. Look at again what happened in Nashville. They had great video surveillance. We have a perfect view of what happened.
Yeah, it didn't stop anything.
Didn't stop anything.
We had another school in Western Pennsylvania. It was recently completed, where their specification was for tinted glass. And I sent them a note. I said, "Look, first responders aren't going to be able to see in there during the day. You should go to clear glass. It's still only going to be 70% visible light transmitting." "No, we like the look of the tinted glass," was the answer that I got. I'm like, "You got to be kidding me. After all of this other stuff, we like the look of it, so aesthetics is your primary concern?" I don't get it.
No, I'm beyond frustrated, but I'm glad you're out there fighting it and your company fights it. And, you've done a heck of a rundown of schools. So at least I know that the schools that you've done everything you can to educate those folks and, push them in the right direction. And I think that's half the battle. So people like you, trying to deliver the message.
Well, getting into a school is really easy also. We've done so many where we've had to be on site. Look, I can get into any high school in 2 minutes. All I do is walk up to the door, hammer on the door, and a kid comes over and kicks the door open and lets me in.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, It's nuts. And there's and the solutions, the industry has simplified the solutions. It's simple, it's easy, it's a little more costly.
Yeah.
There's no question about that. However, what is it worth? You know,
Oh yeah.
I don't get it. And there's something being missed here, and I don't know where it is.
Well, I think we have to keep hammering the message, and
We
so
do.
you know, and
We
that
do, definitely do.
and you're doing that. You're doing that, which is huge. And the other thing that you're doing, and you mentioned one daughter who's a teacher, but you have another daughter who's in the business, Emily, who is working at Specified and an unbelievably talented person. So obviously does not fall far from the tree. So congrats on that.
Thank you.
And so succession planning is a big thing, because this industry, sometimes in the succession planning aspect can go sideways. And it seems like you've got a good feel for what you're doing at Specified and moving to the next generation.
Well, once again, I mean, I relied on feedback from people who have competency in business, and I also recognize very clearly that the generational transfer in small businesses like ours often leads to disaster. Your family, of course, you've gone through that over and over, and you're a family that realizes how this all goes. As I started here's the problem that we all have. Every person in the industry who is like me has this problem. You work so hard not to fail, and you work so hard to build your business, succession planning becomes a very low priority to you. Then one day you wake up and you say, oh, what am I going to do now? Okay. And that's where I found myself. And I spent hours and hours on the phone with people, hours and hours talking to lawyers, hours and hours looking at all the variable options that were out there. I still have 3 competent young management people who are now partners in the business.
Nice.
But all of them in their mid-30s. You just don't take a company like ours and say, here you go, good luck.
Right.
All right. It doesn't work that way. And when you develop the business, as I did and others have with theirs, you have done every function. Your mind is set on decision making. Your patterns are already there. We needed to perpetuate the company. We needed to figure out a way to do it. And it was interesting. I got a call from my bonding agent, because we have to be bonded with our major contracts.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And getting bonded is not easy.
No.
Right.
No.
You have to have a certain basis of equity in order to get bonded. But I got a phone call from my bonding agent, and he said, all right, you're 65 years old. You've got 3 line managers that are in their mid-30s. What are you going to do? I said, why isn't that attractive to people? He goes, no, not at all.
A little scared. It's scary. It makes them skittish.
So I said, what I've been thinking? I'd like to find one of those Fortune 500 guys, who worked in the big world, where in your 40s, they cycle them out and they move on to other things. I said, I'd like to find one of those guys who wants to try their hand at American small business.
Right.
And my bonding agent said, I know a guy.
Okay.
And I ended up with Spencer Todd, who is our managing general partner now, who was a Fortune 100 executive for Thermo Fisher Scientific and then subsequently Gardner Denver.
Sure.
Who said, wow, small business. I'm home every night. I have my weekends off. Yeah. I get to talk to the rank and file one-on-one. I don't know if that ended up being the greatest thing, but he seems to really be enjoying it. And in the process, he brings these refinements and nuances about running business, because he's extremely well educated. Yeah. And extremely experienced, and he is really helping our young executives.
Wonderful. And that's what you need. That's a great call by you. And you're right. I mean, it's there are a lot of pratfalls in the succession planning aspect, and And if you don't do what you did, or you don't attempt to do the research, we had it at BEC, and Jeff Haber from W&W talked about it at length. That this is not a snap decision. It's a research decision. It's a take your time and figure out what's best for you. And kudos to you. You definitely did it the right way. So complete
Well,
props.
I think that I've been asked about this before. There are some people who say, okay, well, I can just liquidate, cash in, and walk away. And you can do that. But I am a firm believer in moral responsibility. I believe that by the grace of God, I am where I am. And I sit back and I look at people and I say, they are depending upon us to feed their families.
Yep.
This is what this is all about. This is what is primary to us.
And smart, and that's why you're doing it the right way. I'm with Bill Wilson, Specified Systems. He is the CEO there. See them online. Lots of good stuff there at specifiedsystems.com. And one of the things you'll see online when you go to their website is they have a Hall of Fame, which I thought was really, really cool that you guys did this. And it was it was pointing to the people that made a difference in, getting Specified going, keeping Specified going. Again, it talks to some of your humility and your grace to point, at folks that had a moment in time with you. How did this all come about? And I don't think I've ever seen anything like that. I don't know if you had an inspiration from somebody else, but talk about the Hall of Fame that you guys are doing.
I think as an exercise of humility, sometimes you need to sit back and say, look, I didn't get here by myself. There's 4 people on there, and I'll say one of them to talk about with you for last real quick. Walt Carmen, who worked with me at Gem Products. Walt is quadriplegic. He was injured in a snowmobile accident. He has so much savoir-faire. It's unbelievable.
Yes.
Was with me from the beginning, invested in the company with us, is still a great consultant to our people. Without Walt, the climb would have been so much tougher.
No doubt.
Rick Belize, who has passed away from pancreatic cancer, was a partner in a company in Greensburg, Pennsylvania called Trimroll Building Products. Rick and I befriended each other. We did back and forth consultation. He supplemented my credit for building materials when I got started.
Nice.
We had great trust. We helped each other enormously. John Kalakis, who's a national figure. I mean, there's no question. Recently passed away. One of my closest friends. His birthday was yesterday. Same day as my mom's.
Gotcha.
John, I worked for at Traco, and anybody who knew John and worked for him will tell you he was not the easiest guy to work for.
Or bought from him. He sold or bought from him too. He was a tough man.
He was tough, but John had some rigidity about fundamentals.
Yeah.
He would have been a good baseball coach. Like you're only going to be successful if you do things a certain way.
Yeah. And
John was adamant about communication strategy and whatnot. And in 1994, we were buying from another company that went into bankruptcy, and we were sitting with some school contracts, and John called me on the phone and said, what about me? Why can't I get some business? And we went from buying products all over the country, a lot of unknown brands, and selling them to architects and whatnot, to getting Traco's catalog, which at the time was the strongest catalog in the industry. And John, they subsequently closed their direct sales contract office in Pittsburgh and let us come on as their first commercial dealer in the Pittsburgh region. And that was just a boon to our existence. And he rightfully launched us. Later in life, he consulted with our people. He and I remained very close friends.
Great man. Was a great man. Absolutely.
Who did I forget? There's another one on there, Steve Pearlstein. I knew Steve from a lot of my previous work relationships, and he and I had gotten to know each other a little bit, but he knew that, I was a free thinker, and that, you could trust what I would say to you. So we landed a job where we had to reglaze 1,100 IG units in a school. And we had a rep who was involved in that process, and that rep tried to get us to use a manufacturer from the East Coast who came to us and said, well, we'll gladly get you the glass, but you're going to have to pay up front for it because you don't have any credit.
Right.
I'm like, wow, what do I do now? Because I
It's
don't
a
have
tough
money
one,
for
right?
1,100 IG units. So I put a call in, and to Steve, got a call back, and I said, I just don't know what to do. I have this contract. I have 1,100 IG units. I don't have the money to
Yeah.
pay up front. Steve said, your credit's good with me. I'll supply the, now there's not a Pearlstein alive that's going to walk away from 1,100 IG units, right? But he gave us credit. He delivered it to job site in racks, and we palletized it and moved it around. It saved us a lot. And I said at that point, I will never give a glass order to any other company as long as PDC makes what I need.
Yeah.
And I was true to that. And we grew to be one of PDC's largest regional customers. And Steve and I are famously aligned even to this day.
He loves you. He loves you. And I think,
I love him too.
Yeah, and I mean that was, that's the way he is. That's his, his way of doing things is he always, believed in his friends and would support them and does to the end. He will do anything for a friend, anything.
Here is the key. If you were to describe in one sentence something about Steve Pearlstein, and if I survive him, you can call on me, and I will say this: Steve Pearlstein has integrity.
Yeah, thank you. That's fair. Now I got to get him to watch this podcast or listen to this podcast. Because we'll see if we can get him to do that. He does. I am just joking, but that's very, very nice. Thank you very much on behalf of the family. I mean, my brother is the man. There's no doubt about that. All right, so let's switch it up a little bit. Let's go to a fun one. Then I got a few more questions for you. You're a Pittsburgh guy, as yes. Folks may know. I grew up in Pittsburgh. I was born and raised there. I'm curious for you, your favorite Pittsburgh sports memory. There's definitely been some good Pittsburgh sports times, but which Pittsburgh sports memory stands out for Bill Wilson?
Well, there were two, actually. In 1970, Roberto Clemente night. Yep. I tend to lean more toward baseball. I think baseball is kind of an intellectual sport, but although it's might not be, but Roberto Clemente night, realizing a guy got 3,000 hits in his career. Yep. And he was kind of, because he was in a regional market, he was kind of suppressed, and he was amazing. But Roberto Clemente night, this guy, he goes, I think 3 for 4. He made a catch sliding into the wall in foul territory in right field. It was just unbelievable. I think he threw a guy out at second base. He just turned it on. Yeah. And Willie Mays said about Roberto Clemente, we just loved coming to Pittsburgh because we wanted to watch this cat play.
Yeah.
He was unbelievable. And then the other one was the 1979 World Series.
Love that team.
First game against the Orioles. And they played We Are Family, and that place went berserk. I mean, they were dancing on the dugout.
The wives.
Orioles were coming out, looking up. It was so intimidating. It was just an absolutely great experience.
I love that 79 team. That's one of my all-time favorite teams. And you're right on Clemente being a regional player, because he probably never got the national love like a Willie Mays got, or Sandy Koufax, got, because he didn't play in New York or LA. He played in Pittsburgh. He now later in life, now they do some different honoring for him, but still does not get, he doesn't get mentioned enough when people talk about the top 5 all-time baseball players. He doesn't get mentioned enough. He's a top 5 all time.
He is. 2. Imagine if he played for the New York Yankees. I mean, he would be being compared and rivaling Mickey Mantle, who I think was the greatest baseball player of all time. Yeah. But he just didn't get the exposure. He finally got it in 71 a little bit in the series, but we were fortunate to have him. He was our own little secret.
Yeah.
What a great ball player.
No doubt, no doubt. Great stuff. I knew you'd come through with that. That's cool. Great stuff. Couple more. So you've been around a minute. You know, you've been in this industry a while. What do you think the biggest changes you've seen from way back in the day to today in the glass and glazing industry?
I think there's two things. One is supply consolidation,
Right.
lack of resources, which is impact pricing, has increased lead times, limited availability of certain products. That's a huge problem for us
Yeah.
right now. And then very important is the industry is no longer creating qualified personnel like it used to.
Yeah, the old days where people went to PPG and got trained, and then all of
And
a
they
sudden,
worked, or the manufacturers had
right?
staffs of salespeople, and now that those don't really exist that much anymore. You know, most of the sales forces are reps.
Right.
There's nobody, just nobody to get. I mean, it's just a really difficult. If you're expanding your business, as we have over the years, it's hard to find the people that you need.
Yeah.
Who have experience. And then the other side of that, which is the upside for the person looking for work, is the value, the amount of money that you have to pay for what we consider to be average competence has changed, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, we're not getting a heavy hitter for the numbers that we're paying.
Right.
You know, we need a clutch hitter. We're not getting them. We're getting an average person and paying 30% more for it.
Yeah, it's definitely a tougher world, and I mean, I remember when I was coming up. I mean, you had companies, they didn't mean to be feeder companies, but they ended up being feeder companies because they could only go so far in some of those bigger organizations, and then they'd flesh out to the rest of the world, and we just don't have that anymore.
Think about it. They were all small businesses, right?
Yeah.
So you're right. There was a limitation on where people could go. So they started looking for other opportunities.
Yeah.
And these companies were training people, and they're just not there anymore.
No, it's a big a big challenge, no question, and not getting any easier, and not gonna get, it's something we all have to keep evolving with. So I guess that's Spencer and Emily and the rest of the gang's problem, more so than yours right now. Going forward, they got to figure that out.
They are, and they are. I mean, this is something that they're constantly studying. You know, Jim Highland, our
Jimmy.
business development manager, he is, has to look at ways for estimating, has to look at other things. Operationally, we have the same problem. Where do we find field staff that's capable? We're into bringing people in, training them. It's so different than when I started.
No doubt. That's a good one. Now, product wise, anything hot in the street that you like that is impressing you? There's a lot. There's a handful of new things that are popping out there. Any of those catching your eye?
For us, probably not as much. We're always looking at the glazing technologies and the thermal performance values that are out there. We're using a lot more of the high thermal efficiency stick products. We're always looking, at optimizing performance in glass, things like that. We don't do any unitized or integrated panel systems or anything like that. We try to stay 8 stories and down. Wide mix of products. We still consider ourselves to be window experts, so we mix products a lot.
Nice. That's smart. So before I wrap up, I'm with Bill Wilson, Specified Systems. He's their CEO. See them online at specifiedsystems.com. Great website, great company, and you've spent a good amount of time with me, which I appreciate. And I want to talk before we go about 2024. I'm curious what your take on the upcoming year is, because each day it seems to almost change depending on what's going on with these banks, what's going on with the rates, what's going on in the world. What's your take on 2024 in the industry? You guys feeling like you're in good shape, or you battling? What's the feel for next year?
Cautious optimism.
Okay.
The rise in interest rates and the impact that interest rates are going to have on commercial development. There are visual impacts that we're seeing, and that is the amount of vacant commercial space.
Yeah.
We're seeing a ton of mixed use development going on. We're optimistic because of how we're positioned client wise. Some of the people that we're ultimately working for are well capitalized, and they know that they can sustain through this transition period. I'm not an expert, but the rise in interest rates has to have a big impact.
Yeah.
Our borrowing rate right now, if we have to feed our operation, I mean, to have to pay 7 or 8% to do that, that crushes your bottom line. And I don't know. I mean, I think we're just right now, we have good business coming in from good customers.
Right.
You don't have a choice, regardless of what the economic situation is. You still have to promote. You've got to get out there and promote and adjust and do whatever you need to do to sustain.
Yeah.
And I'm not optimistic about how this country is being run right now. I'm disgusted with politics, with economic management, prioritization. I don't know.
Yeah.
I wish I could give you the answer.
The $4 trillion debt ceiling suspension was a real thrill for all of us, right? I mean, like,
oh yeah,
gosh,
really excited.
Brutal.
If we operated like the government operates, we'd have been out
exactly.
of business a long time ago.
Completely ridiculous. Completely ridiculous. So you're dead on with all of that, and yeah, I appreciate the insight on what you see. And I mean, I like the fact that, again, this comes back to almost the beginning of you developed relationships and you've developed them your entire career, and that is still making a difference to this day. And boy, does that, you never know who you're going to be friends with, but it's important to, make those friends and make that networking happen. And you've done that. You're a picture of that, Bill.
I think that one of the things that really affects our industry, Max, is people who don't understand or refuse to acknowledge how the business really needs to be run. They don't support market prices. There were so many people in our industry who got some PPP help, and what they did was they just went ahead and took their labor out of their next bid.
Yeah, and bombed the price.
Why would you do that? I mean, and you sit back and you go like, look, don't drive market prices down, because when you drive market prices down, the people who benefit are the people who don't deserve to have the best prices. Yeah. And it's something that we constantly face, that lack of sophistication by some of the competition.
It really is a continuing challenge, but again, I think you've set your company up the right way. You've got a good a background crew of people that continue to grow, and so you're doing it the right way there. So I think you're heading in the right direction, my friend. I mean, I know you've got a lot of balls in the air, but I love what's going on in Specified Systems.
Well, I actually since I brought Spencer on board and I have Emily, Ryan, and Jimmy in there, I am in a good shape. I don't have to do as much. I don't want to do anything. I'm going to be 70 years old. I'll be happy just to check in once in a while or answer as needed.
Well, you've paid those dues. Betting on yourself all those years ago, that alone takes big time guts. I am so thankful for your time today, Bill. Bill Wilson, Specified Systems, specifiedsystems.com is the website. Check it out. Bill, thank you so much for your time. And this was great stuff. Great stuff.
Max, so great to talk to you. Best of luck going forward. You do a great job representing the industry.
I'm honored by that. Thank you, sir. We'll see you soon. Thank you.
Right, take care. Bye now.
Okay, that will wrap things up for this month. Thank you, Sophia. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Bill. Great people. I hope everybody enjoyed the interviews. Before I let you go, the TV aspect of things, returning shows. Jack Ryan's coming back for its last season on Amazon very, very soon. Has his Winning Time on HBO. The Lakers docu miniseries sort of thing that was really, really well done last year. They're both back with new seasons here coming up soon. Big fear, though, writer strike. The writer strike going on is a concern that could affect our TV watching here if this thing doesn't get settled soon. So keep an eye on all of that. Once again, this podcast was brought to you by myglassclass.com. Make sure if you need any glass and glazing training, that is your first stop from the National Glass Association, myglassclass.com. Check it out today. If you want more info, let me know. Otherwise, I will see you next month. I've loaded up with some really interesting people. They've all committed. I'm not going to jinx it here, but come on back. Thank you, everybody who's watched and listened and supported. It means a ton. Really, really appreciate it. Everyone stay well, and I'll see you next month.
Oh, the music is stopped.